1 month time value of money because it's so simple, right? So small. All right, ignore it. So that's time 0. So the discount factor is 1%. Now, what is the discount rate in this calculation? It said it's 4.2%. So how do we get this 4.2%? Because the question also gives you some extra information. The new yield right now is only 7%. That is the coupon rate you issue on this bond is 16. But now the yield dropped to 7% today. All right? So that means it is the cost of debt of this company. 7%. Now, I told you when you discount after tax cash flow, we should discount with after tax discount rate. All this cash flow, they are related to a bond. So that means the riskiness is the same as a bond. So therefore, all this after tax cash flow, we discount it with the after tax cost of debt. So now our cost of debt is 7% with a tax rate of 40%. So therefore, the after tax cost of debt is 4.2%. 7% times 1 minus 0.4. Okay? So this is the typical case after tax cash flow because we calculate after tax cash flow. It's calculated using the after tax cost of debt because all these are related to debt financing. Alright? So that's why it's 4.2%. So this is now because this discounting 1.2 million. Now flotation cost. So flotation cost is 1.125, not 1.25, 1.125, I'm sorry. It's 1.125. Alright? So that means it is 1.125 million. So you have to pay the flotation cost to issue the new bond to refund the old one. Alright? So what will be the tax saving on this flotation cost? So if you divide 1.125 million by 5, right, that is your annual amortization. Alright? Again, why divided by 5? Because the CRA rules that the maximum amortization period for flotation cost is 5 years. So even though you issue a 9-year bond, alright? So if you divide it by 5 and multiply by the tax rate, so this is your after-tax saving in the next 5 years. So you discount all this 5 payment with a 4.2%, you should get a present value of 398,423. Right? So you should know how to do this rotation cost calculation, right? Now the next here is, I said earlier, they allow the bondholder 30 days to return a bond. But they have to issue the bond today. They cannot wait 30 days. But what happened? Okay, I refund it, and they return in 30 days, so I issue the new bond in 30 days. No, because what happens if there's a change in any factor, in interest rate? So they return it, but you do not get the new financing, then you will be in big trouble. All right? So therefore, the company, they issue the new bond at time 0. When they make the announcement to call the bond, they have to issue the new bond. But they only get the old bond back in 30 days. So therefore, there's an overlap period of 30 days. You have 2 bonds outstanding. Right? The new bond and old bond outstanding at the same time for this 30-day period. All right? So this is part of the cost of refunding, because if you don't have this, you don't need to pay coupon on both of them. So in this example, so you calculate, so in this case, you calculate 20 million, all right? And the old bond, you pay a 16% coupon. So this is your annual coupon, all right? But you only have this for a month. Now for this calculation, you can just use simple interest, Because in bond pricing, when they calculate accrued interest, they use simple interest. That's the practice, because it's a historical reason, right? Think about 50, 60 years ago, or even 100 years ago. There's no calculator, right? So when they calculate accrued interest, they just manually do it. So this divided by 12, right? So even nowadays, even you have all advanced technology, but in bond pricing, the accrued interest, they're still using simple interest to do the calculation. Okay, all right? So therefore, this is the amount, right? So this is the before tax extra interest you have to pay if you refund, right? Okay, and then you multiply by the tax rate, 1 minus tax rate, this is 160. And as I said, they happen over this period of time today. So therefore, no discounting is needed. Now, the next one is also said in the question, I did not tell you, is since you have 2 bonds outstanding at the same time, but you only need the money for your operation. So what happens for the new bond? Right? For the new bond, you do not just leave it on the table. You will make some short-term investment. Maybe you buy 1 month treasury bill, or you make a 1 month GIC deposit, right? Guaranteed investment. Okay? So you earn something for this 1 month period. So the assumption in this question is assume that you can invest this extra 20 million, that means the new bond, at, I believe they have 3% per year. All right? So therefore, you get, now they put negative because it is a negative cost. This is a negative cost. All right? So the total, if you look at it, the total is 2.05 million. Okay, so this is the way they present it. But now, if I were the one working on this, so what I would do is I forget about cost and benefit. I only use plus or minus to indicate as an inflow or outflow. So if I'm the one presenting here, I will use this is negative, that's an outflow. This is negative, outflow. This one is positive because it's tax saving, right? It's inflow. This one is extra interest I pay, outflow. And this one will be positive, the interest I earn, right? And this one become negative. Okay? But it's up to you. As long as you do it right, I don't care what you presented. And now the same thing, sometimes students, they want to work with percentage in the calculation, and sometimes they use decimal. And they just make mistakes sometimes. All right? So I would suggest you either work with all in percentage or all in decimal. Actually, using decimal is better than using percentage sign. Okay? So try to use decimal as much as possible. Now, next will be the interest saving, the benefit of this. All right? So we have 20 million and 16% interest rate. So that means annual interest will be 3.2 million a year on the old bond. But the new bond, you only need to pay your cost of debt, which is the yield, 7%. So that means 1.4 million. So that means each year you save about $1.8 million before tax. So your after-tax interest saving will be 1.08 million, right? And you will have this for the next 9 years. So this is the annuity factor, 7.9. So now the NPV is 5.9. So you should go ahead in this case. You should refund your bond because you have a positive NPV of refunding. Okay? Now this one is exercise. I believe this is a past exam question, part of it. So in your assignment 2, question number 2, the first one or two part, I forget how many, 1 or 2, is to calculate callable bond price and so on, coupon rate. And the last part is I give you extra information. If you decided to call the bond, what would be the NPV of the bond refunded? Right? It's similar to this exercise. Okay, so let's look at this company. They are looking at the possibility of refunding a 40 years, 200 million bond issue. All right, and the coupon rate was 14%, and it was issued 20 years ago. So that means the maturity remaining is 20 years, not 40. All right, and they can refund it with a new 20 years, $2 million issue and a coupon rate of 10%. So that means their cost of debt or the use maturity is also 10%. Because if the new issue at a face value, then yield to maturity must equal to the coupon rate. All right? So don't ask me. Some students ask me, hey, what is in this question? What is the yield to maturity? I only given the cost of coupon rate. You can know. You can tell. If you can issue at face value 200 million, then coupon rate must equal to the yield to maturity. All right? So now this question is that you have a 8% call premium, and the flotation cost on this new issue will be $6 million, and the new bond will have to be issued 1 month before the old bond are called, and the proceeds can be parked in the money market to earn 6%, assume compounded monthly, right? And tax rate is 30%, calculate the NPV of the bond refunding. So very straightforward calculation. So the call premium, so as I said, I usually use negative sign to indicate it's a cash outflow, positive sign is a cash inflow, right? As long as inflow more than outflow, I will go ahead. All right. So the call premiums 16 million, like 8% of the bond we refund. Now the flotation cost is given as $6 million, and we want to calculate what is the tax saving from this flotation cost. So 6 million divided by 5, we get the annual amortization, and if you multiply by the tax rate, so this is your annual tax savings, and we have this for the next 5 years. Now what is the discount rate, right? Because in this question, it said that now our new coupon rate and our yield to maturity is 10%. So that means the cost of debt is 10%. With a tax rate of 30%, then your after-tax cost of debt will be 7%. All right? Okay, so the present value is 1.476 million. Now this is the extra interest you pay on the old bond. We have 200 million, and the old bond paid 14% coupon, and we only have this extra interest for 1 month, so that's why we divide by 2. And this interest is tax deductible, so we multiply by 1 minus tax rate. Now the call premium, according to the CRA rule, is not a tax deductible expense. Right? So even they pay this premium to call the bond, but this call premium is not a tax deductible expense. So that's why we do not multiply by 1 minus T. Okay? So as I said before, all transfers we assume they are tax deductible, except those we explicitly said no. In this one is one of example. Yeah.
Where does the 7% come from?
It is the after-tax cost of debt. Right? The company right now the coupon rate is 10%, and if they can issue the bond at par value of 200 million, then the yield to maturity of this bond must be 10% as well. So this 10% is also the cost of debt of the company. So before tax is 10%, tax rate 30%, so after tax cost of debt will be 7%. Right? Okay? And now, the new bond, we will pack it at the money market and you earn 6% per year, but we can only earn this interest for 1 month. So therefore, we calculate the after-tax interest income. And then this is 700,000. Okay? So the total cost, so I just add up everything, right? This is the call premium, flotation cost, tax saving from flotation cost, extra interest we pay, the extra interest we earn. So the net cost is 21 million. All right? Now next will be the interest saving. So the old bond I paid 14, or the company pays 14%, and now they only need to replace it by 10% coupon. So they will save 4% on $200 million and before tax. So after tax it will be 5.6 million. And they will have this tax saving for the next 20 years. So that is equal to present value of 59 million. All right. So if you add the cost and the benefit together, that's a net saving of 37 million, or 38, around $38 million. So the decision should be, well, refund the bond. All right. So bond refunding should not be a difficult question. Okay. Now bond rating. So I mentioned something is the default risk. Okay. And who pay for the rating? I said that is the company. So this is a conflict of interest. There's a conflict of interest because who are the bond? The company. The company pay the rating agency to give a rating on this bond. So if your rating agency is very tough, that means, well, just like for example, right? You know I'm tough on grading, all right? So if I only give student, let's say the highest grade in this course is only a B, and other professor, same course, the lowest grade is A minus. So what happens is I will have no student in this group, right? Everyone will go to the other professor, right? So that's rating agency issue. That's the conflict of interest. Rating agency, they are paid up by the company. If they always use a very tough rating criterion, they will lose business, right? But at the same time, if they always give a wrong rating, then, well, nobody will trust them anymore. But the problem before 2008 financial crisis was we only have a few major rating agencies in the world. Moody's, S&P, right? And so therefore, that's why in the financial crisis, a lot of credit rating, they are absolutely garbage at that time, all right? So after 2008 financial crisis, we have more rating agencies, right? Especially in other parts of the world, Europe, Asia, and so on. Where's the attendance? Thank you. All right. Now, junk bond, anything, let's say for example, S&P, anything less than triple B, that is even your double B, is still a junk bond. Junk bond, they have poor quality. They have a high chance of bankruptcy. So we call this high yield bond, right? Now there are two types of junk bond. Either they are originally issued junk bond, right? And not now. We seldom have original junk bond issue in Canada now, but if you look at 80, 90, there are a lot of junk bond, right? Especially in the US. Now other junk bond, they are fallen angels. That means they are rated to be top quality, but company make poor decision or economic environment changed and their profit drops significantly, so their credit rating is below, let's say below double B. All right, okay. And junk bond usually is a private placement because the OSC want to protect small investor, so they don't want small investor to invest in junk bond. Okay, so when you invest in junk bond, basically is you will have high default risk, but you get an extra premium. Now in the 80s, a lot of junk bond, their yield was about 18 to 20%. So that means you receive 18 to 20% yield on the junk bond, but they have a very high chance of bankruptcy. Right? Because in the 80s, the interest rate at that time, even bank deposit rate was double digit. I still remember I can earn 10%, 12% interest. Just saving account, not GIC, just saving account at BMO, big bank. All right, at that time, very high interest rate at that time. Okay. Now we have different types of bond. Zero coupon bond. So we know what the zero coupon bond is. That means they only have at time zero, at maturity, you only get face value back. That's no coupon, so we call it a zero coupon bond, or just called zero. Now a floating rate bond means the interest rate, they depends on a benchmark. So let's say if the floating rate is prime rate plus 2%. So each year they will pay you coupon based on what the prime rate is. So if the prime rate is 5%, they pay you 7%. If the prime rate is 2%, they pay you 4%. But normally, there is a ceiling and there's a floor. So let's say the ceiling is 4%, the floor is 4%, the ceiling is, let's say, 10%. So basically, this is an option as well. When you set a ceiling, when you set a floor, this is an option. So that's why, as I told you, option is everywhere in the financial market. Everywhere. Okay? All right, so this is the ceiling and the floor. So that means even the prime rate is 10%. Now, they would not pay you 12, they pay you 10. Even the prime rate, let's say, is 1%, they would not pay you 3%, they pay you 4%. All right, so we call it a floating rate. Now, we can also have a reverse floating. That means, yeah, the opposite, but we are not arguing. Now, income bond. Now, income bond is a bond that they only pay you the coupon if the firm, they have positive income. So if the firm, they have no income, they don't need to pay the coupon. All right? Or sometimes even the principal. So income bond usually issued by company, they are in financial distress. Right? So they're high risk bond. Okay? And convertible bond allow the company, the bondholder to convert into other security of the company, maybe equity. So we will look at convertible bond in a few weeks, right? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, we look at convertible bond. So as I told you, if the two bonds, a straight bond and a convertible bond, they have exactly the same risk, issued by the same company, same coupon rate, same maturity, then in fact the price of a convertible bond should be higher than the straight bond, because you buy two things, right? You buy the bond and you buy the conversion option. Okay, because now it's the bondholder who has the option. Now, puttable and retractable bond. Now, puttable bond this time is a put option. It's not a call option. Actually, this allows the bondholder to return the bond to the company at a predetermined price. So if the bond price drops significantly below that predetermined price, now you return the bond to the company. All right? So puttable bond, the price of a puttable bond will be higher than the otherwise identical straight bond. Because again, two things. When you buy this puttable bond, you buy a straight bond and you buy a put option. Put option allows you to sell. That is, you return it. Okay? Now, a scripted will return bond. So a scripted will return bond is we get it from inflation. All right? Basically, is when the inflation is higher, you get a higher face value back, and also the coupon rate is based. The coupon payment is based on the inflated principal. So let's say originally the principal is $1,000 or face value is 1,000. Let's say next year inflation rate is 5%. So now next year your flat value will be $1,050. So when you calculate your coupon, it's based on $1,050. Now what exactly stripped means? Now stripped means it's a zero coupon bond. Okay? Now this is what we call some kind of unbundling. Unbundling. What is unbundling? Let's say, for example, let's say Canadian government, they did not issue a 3-year pure discount bond. They don't. Let's say, for example, they don't. All right? In the past, they may have some, but now they don't. So Canadian government, they only issue, let's say, coupon bond. So this coupon bond pay you $100 each year, and $1,000 at the end. Assume this is the case, 5 years coupon bond. All right? But in the market, if you want, you can buy a 3 years pure discount bond issued by the government. Why? Because they're created by the investment banker. So that's why I told you, probably I don't know whether I told you that before, but I can say you now. The finance people, they're the smartest people in the world, because they want to get your money from their pocket. Right? They have to be smart. Right? Otherwise, how can you get your money from your pocket? All right? So when you see there's a demand, let's say someone want a 3-year government pure discount bond, but the Bank of Canada or the government of Canada did not issue it, we create it. So what we do is the investment banker buy this bond, and they sell this payment to one investor, and they sell this investment to another investment, or they sell this $100 to the third investor, and they sell this to the fourth investor, and they sell this to the fifth investor. So that means they unbundle the cash flow. We call this financial engineering. You unbundle the cash flow and you create something people want, but they are not available in the market. All right? So nowadays there's so many innovative products in the market. Some of them, they are really a scam, I would say. All right? But if you don't know it, you say, oh, this is a good investment, you just put the money in it and you lose a lot of money. Well, usually sometimes, it's always risky. But when you make the investment, you have to look at the riskiness, whether the return worth that riskiness. All right? So I'm not saying that you should not take risks, you should not invest in investment, but you should look at the price, assess the riskiness of the cash flow. If this is a good investment, sometimes you have to take risks, but whether it's worth it or not. Okay? Now the asset-backed security or asset bond. This asset bond, I just give you an example, mortgage-backed security, MBS, right, which is the most common asset-backed bond. Asset-backed bond can be anything, can be any asset, it can be an account receivable of a company, it may be a credit loan, it can be anything. But mortgage is the most common asset-backed security in the world, all right? So what is a mortgage-backed security? Now basically we know that we have a lot of banks. So this is bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, bank 4, right? And they also issue or they sell mortgage, the homeowner. So let's say this is a homeowner, HO. HO1, HO2, and so on. They're homeowner. So they are mortgage in different banks, right? All right? So every month they make mortgage payment to the bank, right? Now, what happened is some of the investors, they are interested in mortgage investment. Well, I want to lend money to homeowner because I think it's a good investment, it's a safe investment. But how can you lend money to homeowner? Now we know there's some private firm that make kind of arrangement, but the cost is extremely high, the transaction cost. All right? But at the same time, I don't have $1 million because one mortgage nowadays is almost close to $1 million. So I don't have $1 million. I only have, let's say, $5,000. Right? How can you invest in a mortgage with only $5,000? So whenever there's a demand, then we will have some smart guy. So we set up a mortgage-backed security. So this mortgage-backed security is a special purpose vehicle or a special purpose entity. So this entity set up as an organization, do nothing, just buy the mortgage. So they buy the mortgage from the banks. So this is the M1, M2, or the mortgage M3, and so on. So they buy all the mortgage from the bank, and then they issue the mortgage-backed security to investor. Now all this mortgage-backed security, they have different changes. That is, they have different interest rate, different risk. So up to you, right? If you want higher yield, then you have lower priority in case of liquidation. If you want safety, you accept a lower yield. So they have issue different tranches or different classes of mortgage-backed security. So basically is when the homeowner pay the mortgage payment, the bank will forward the money to this mortgage-backed security organization. And they will use those money to pay the interest to the small investor. So we call this mortgage-backed security. All right? Okay, this is part of what we call securitization. So nowadays you can almost securitize anything. You can issue anything, just set up an organization, buy a lot of those things, and issue security to the market, and then we call it securitization. Okay? Now next week what we can do is just finish the remaining slide and we move on to the new topic, which is leasing. Now in the 9th edition, chapter 22 is the worst chapter in the book. Now I'm not saying they're wrong, but they just have inconsistent assumption. I just received the 10th edition, so I don't have a chance to look at it. So I will look at it whether they updated chapter 22 or not after class today. Right? But next week we'll look at leasing.